WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. I want to thank you for being with us today. Each and every Tuesday at 2:30, we come to you on Star Communications Channel 16. We always look forward to folks comment from listening to us on the radio, WCLN. This is a summation in the Sampson Weekly newspaper. For those folks that missed both of those mediums, you can pick that up in the Sampson Weekly newspaper, a brief summation of what we talked about today. We certainly do appreciate your commentaries as we go along with each and every one of our shows. We should know edu@gmail.com. We should know edu@gmail.com. Our snail mail address is Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. I'm always interested in reviewing your comments and suggestions for new shows. Today is an active show, and we got people here that are at the pinnacle of activity in the area. We have with us Dana Hall, Parks and Recreation with Sampson County, the director, and Jonathan Allen, Recreation and Parks in the City of Clinton, director. Guys, I want to thank you for coming and talking to us today. When I think about energy and activity and doing stuff, especially in the summertime, but year-round, but particularly in the summertime with everything that's going on, I think about you guys. What's on your mind as we see the evolution of school, being out for a few weeks here and kids everywhere? Everything in gear is, I want to say something corny like, is the bats polished or something? I don't know. But what goes on in Parks and Rec during this time of the year that you're thinking about?
Well, for us, it's pretty much the wrap-up of baseball and softball season. This year, we're starting a new program. We're starting our summer softball program for girls 13 and under. And basically, we're going to do some clinics in a partnership with our high schools. We're going to get some high school players to come out, and they're actually going to be clinicians earning some extra volunteer hours to work with some of the kids. And it's going to be about a 6 to 8 week program. And in turn with that, we also offer a futsal program. We have a partnership with the county schools, and they allow us to use their school facilities after hours. So we're actually going to be using their gymnasiums for indoor soccer during the summer. So we can kind of beat the heat by signing up your kids. We also have adult leagues for those who are interested in that as well.
And Dana, I want to talk to you in a little while also about the sheer volume of space that you have when you talk about the entire county, because it is a huge kind of geographical area. You know, Jonathan, we talked a little bit before coming on air about the kind of changing dynamic of what Parks and Rec is. But when you look at the city of Clinton, you think of Royal Lane with 79 acres of property. As you and I were talking, there may be a lot of folks don't realize that. What's really the focal point right now for you for the city of Clinton?
Well, we're kind of in the same boat as Dana and the county with finishing up baseball. We'll be hosting the baseball Dixie Youth Baseball District Tournament coming up in later on in June 21st. We'll start that out at Royal Lane, so people can come out and really enjoy some good baseball. We're also in the process of getting turning over to the pool. Pool's open now on weekends. We start Monday with weekdays 1 to 5, so people come out there. It's $3 for adults, which is ages 16 and up, to age 54, 55 and over are seniors. That's $2, and then $1 for infants.
And that's for all day.
That's
somebody
for all
comes
day.
on and stay all day, and then go to lunch, come back, they can still get back in.
They're not allowed back in. They don't get a voucher to come back in, so they have to stay there during that time. But if they want to come, like I said, we're open 1 to 5 on a weekday, so they can come in that 1 to 5 time and stay that whole time for that price. So that's a pretty good deal. We're also going to be doing rentals. We are going to be closing on Sundays. However, we will have the pool open from 2 to 7 for rentals. So if someone would like to rent, all they have to do is just call the Recreation office at 299-4906, and we can give them that information.
Both you guys have been in this business for, I'm not going to say many years, but long enough to be seasoned, should I say. I'm going to give you a chance this morning to think about something. If you had opportunity, anything that you've done so far in your career as it relates to recreation, you get a chance to do over. What might one of those do-overs look like, Dana?
Something I would do over is I would start back up our summer camp program if it was something that we could do within the county. I know Jonathan and I have both talked about the need of summer camps and the need for school-age children to have something to do during the summer months. And now pretty much the majority, I'd say 95% of our parents that are participate in our program, our kids, their parents are working, and so it's tough for them in the summer to find activities that are positive, have positive environments and positive role models. So if I had a do-over, I would make sure that we had a strong summer camp program to continue throughout the county, which is something that we're lacking right now.
Jonathan, how about you?
Very similar. We've been looking at summer camp and after school camp. That's something that I was fortunate to have when I came. Is we had some of those programs going on, and that's a real need that I see in the community, and going forward. And as far as doing something different, I don't know. I'm not sure what I would do differently.
Or what you had control of.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you live and learn, and everybody makes mistakes. I think that's part of the learning process. So I'm not sure I would do anything differently. Just learn from that experience and move on.
I want to kind of play off on the summer camp thing. Just had a little note here. I wanted to talk about that anyway, so you opened the door, and it's great. You're exactly right. I think we do have a lot of parents that's working. And the changing of schedule for some parents is a pretty hard issue to face, especially as now these kids are home, depending on what age they are, anywhere from, I'd say 10 down. I would suspect somebody probably needs to be there to kind of make sure they're okay, and, as the old saying goes, not burning the house down. So when you look at that and you look at the vital need for that, how do you sell that to folks that prepare and plan these budgets as it being a critical function for a community, for a county, for a city, to have those available services?
Well, I think you have to talk to the public. The public has to voice the real need for these programs, because I think the city council and the commissioners, they're willing to do what the public wants. But the issue is sometimes that the public doesn't voice their concern to the right ears. And so from what I understand from our commissioners, we have a good group of commissioners right now, and they are very open to listening to what the public's needs are, and refocusing some of what they want. So a lot of times, we're not aware of actually the change in what they would like, and they're willing to pay for what they want lots of times. And I think that's something that kind of in the back of our mind when we're doing budgets is, well, we're going to have to suit the cost for all of this, but that's really not the case a lot of times with the public. They're willing, to pay for a service because as we've been able to see within our park systems, as we're being able to build and grow, the public wants this, and they're actually willing to provide the funding for it.
Do you think part of it, Jonathan, is where folks realize, look, if I take my child somewhere and I drop them off and it's with a city or the county, it's controlled by the government, that I feel pretty confident they're going to be looked after and safe and all those kinds of things, so I'll chip in $20, $30 or whatever to have that happen? Is that part of the equation as well?
It's part of the equation. I think part of what you said is spot on. They understand that the government entity has a responsibility, and as that responsibility, they trust that responsibility. So it's more of an earned trust that we have with them. The other thing too is about your staff. Your staff you have to have staff that they trust as well. And we've been fortunate, and I can say with Dana as well, we've been fortunate with the city and the county that we've had some great staff that are working in the school systems. That's been phenomenal. Like, for example, our pool manager, she works with the county school system. So the parents know them. So that familiarity is very important. So when we go and look at, like summer camps, for example, when we look to hire our leaders for that, we go to the schools because they know them, and they feel comfortable with them, and we know that they're going to do a good job. They're responsible to be able to do the job in the way it should be done. And our council members, our commissioners, they trust us to make sure that happens. And she's right. The public, in fact, I just had a couple of conversations this week with citizens, and that were wanting tennis courts or something else. And I've told them, I said, send me an email, talk to your district representative, because they need to know that.
And I think part of that is moving this discussion forward as it relates to just that one area for summer schools and those kinds of things. If folks reach out enough, what I hear you saying, if they reach out enough and people see that as part of where the needle is moving, they may step in front of it and say, look, we're willing to allow you guys to do that.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what our boards and commissioners are doing, is they're looking for public input. They're looking to where the need is, that we need to best use and allocate our funding. So it's not, like I said, it's not that we're going to get additional funding necessarily. It's just reallocating that money where the need is.
So a lot of times what happens, from what I've read, and I'm looking at the North Carolina Association of Parks and Recreation, which you guys are a member of, there's some commonalities throughout North Carolina with not only needs but expectations. But then there seems to be some uniquenesses, if you will, in rural areas, particularly rural areas east of 95, in the challenge of just having assets to have people on board. Is that something that you got to get past to start with?
You do. We are fortunate to have the number of staff we have, but we also have to be very creative. That's probably the biggest difference, I think, and Dana could probably expand on this a little bit as well. But the biggest, I wouldn't say obstacle, but the biggest challenge we have is utilizing staff for different programs. So we just have to be careful with it.
We're going to take a break. We'll come back and we'll follow up on that a little bit, and not talk about programs, but equipment and needs you have as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about parks and recreation. We're talking about two folks who know something about that. Dana Hall, Jonathan Allen, City of Clinton, County of Sampson. We'll be back in one moment. Call a friend. Go out and play ball with somebody. We'll be back in a moment.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home, so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. Coming to you, Star Communications, Channel 16, WCLN Radio, some issue the Sampson Weekly newspaper. Again, that email address is weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. Weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. We're talking about recreation stuff today. We're talking with Dana Hall and Jonathan Allen. Dana's with the counties of Sampson and the city of Clinton, and both are the directors of the recreation departments. When I look at the picture of that in my mind, I see a visuality of common interest, but then I see some extreme diversity as it relates, Dana, to the area that you cover. And when you look at budgets and so forth, we were just talking as we went off air about folks, if they have a need or they want more things happening with rec or after school. But with your area, you've got a huge county. And you're talking 72 miles from one end to the other, and each one of these county departments is almost like sub-departments. How do you deal with that personnel-wise? Because I've looked, and the budget, they haven't given you that much to pay people with. So how do you inspire people, should I say?
Well, really, it takes the right person. I mean, just as with every job, but with us, kind of what we advertise and what we're looking for is somebody who wants to get a variety of experience. We know that there's sometimes that we cannot draw people to be here for a lifetime, to live here, but most of the time what ends up happening with us is folks come in and they like that they get to do a variety of different things. They like that we change from one sport to the next, that they're not in the office all day, that they get to be out, they actually get to interact with the kids. And so even though that has its challenges because they're going to be moving, in and out, and they're going to be working outside of their office, it also has its positives because a lot of times when you are in a larger department, you're kind of sink down into a smaller area. This is your one thing, and that's what you do. You don't help with other things. And so a lot of times people get bored with that, and so they move from city to city or bounce from job to job because they get tired of what they're doing and they want to try to do something else. So that's one of the things we're fortunate with in the county is they don't ever get the chance to get bored typically. They get to be very hands-on. So if they're hands-on types of people, like Jonathan and myself are, you still get that involvement with the participants. You still get the involvement with your staff. So it's not like you're scheduling someone for an activity and you don't actually get to see it take place.
So, Jonathan, I think probably in looking at some information and talking with you off air as well, you do depend a lot on that inspirational kind of person, and that person says, well, look, I want to be a part of that. Some of that's unpaid too, isn't it?
It is. We get a lot of volunteers. In fact, we got a gentleman that's going to be doing a football camp in a couple of weeks with us, and it's totally volunteer. He came to us and wanted the space, and that's how it began. And so we're looking forward to doing that. But it's things like that that make our jobs easier and actually makes it better for the community. And that's what she was talking about with the special. It takes a special person that wants to take that time to volunteer, and we're fortunate in our community to have that because there's areas that don't are not fortunate enough to have people that want to volunteer. So if someone wants to volunteer, they can always get in touch with us. We'll be glad to put them to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
We always have a need. So that's the good thing about us. We can do that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that we can offer for them.
What's changed in the past few years as far as the kinds of things that the public expects of you, though? I mean, you've had folks, I'm sure, as you just both talked about, that'll call you off to the side and say, why don't you do so-and-so, or why don't you do this? Is the expectation for Parks and Recreation going up and becoming broader, or is it, is it getting more focused? Give us your sense with that for this area.
I think it depends on the sport, if you're talking about sports. What I found is each sport, that the group that's in that sport, their mindset is on that sport. It's not, okay, well, why don't you do X, Y, and Z? It's more of, okay, well, if it's baseball, why don't we have this with baseball? Or why
more
don't we
umpires,
have this?
more ball fields.
Right, those type of things. It's sport specific. Now, for example, if you get walkers that come out to the park, they can lend it, and actually parents that go out to the playground are great examples. They're thinking broader. They're not really thinking, okay, just necessarily about the playground or about the walking trail. They're thinking, okay, well, I see that you don't have the trash can, for example, in this location. How can we do that? My family would like to donate a bench or whatever that may be. They're seeing a bigger scale. But the expectations are that the upgrade to facilities. That's what we're seeing now. Why don't we have what Raleigh has, or why don't we have this or that? And that's kind of what we're seeing. It's more about the nuts and bolts of the park itself that we're seeing as far as the expectations going up.
One of the things that strikes me, a few years back we did a piece on the Mountain to Sea Trail with a young lady that's done that kind of all over the world, walk trails and so forth. How has that impacted the county? Because at the time that seemed to be a huge plus for the county because a corridor of that came down through Sampson, and the county manager and the assistant manager was out walking it and all that kind of thing. Has that kind of died down, Dana, or do you still see some interest in it?
I wouldn't say it's totally died down. I think that's always going to continue. It's just really a different group of people who are involved in that. They are not typically our normal participants.
Kind of like you were talking about, John.
Yeah, they're kind of in and out. So you'll see them walking, or you'll see them come to our park for a water break or bathroom break or something like that as they they continue to walk. But I think you're always going to have that, just like your national parks, you're always going to have people visit, you're always going to have people continuing to do that, but that's not necessarily going to be our regular participants.
That's kind of a peak thing, something that a flare, as it were, to say, look, we're still here, we're involved with that, and we support that kind of thing. For a rural county, and I know both you guys are very familiar with this. Jonathan, you're from up in the Smithfield area. What do we need to do to kind of gravitate ourselves more to understanding the important role of Parks and Rec as it relates to a bit about what we talked about off air, Jonathan, as it relates to folks wanting to be here or in Bladen County or in Pender County or any rural county east of 95? Is this a huge key part of the economic development? Have we missed that? And is it something we need to step back and say, wait a minute, this people think about this? Or am I wrong in that direction?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Now, we talked about a little bit off air about, Sampson County used to be, you kind of were born here, you stayed here your entire life. That's not the case anymore, and people are looking to build their sense of community through Parks and Recreation. That's kind of where their kids are making their friends. That's where the adults are, making friends and meeting new people in their area. And if there's a disconnect, where are they going to get that? So that's what folks, it seems to me, that they're looking for, is they're looking to find a sense of community, and they're looking for Parks and Recreation to find that. So they're going to the parks, and their kids are meeting up with other kids on the playground, and they're looking for play dates, and then they're looking for programs to involve them in so they can continue to make friends. And the socialization part of the kids, but also as the adults too, as they're moving into our area for a new job, but if they don't quickly make friends and they don't feel that sense of community, then they don't feel the need to stay here and be involved in our community.
So it's part of, Jonathan, kind of self-identity, not only what somebody's expectation is that comes here, but for us to recognize that expectation may be there.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And somehow then hand it to you folks, and then you got to economically determine whether we can actually make that happen.
Right.
I'll use an example. A few years back, I remember a friend of mine from Winston-Salem was telling me about a game called pickleball. And the only thing I could think about was dill pickles in Mount Olive. I'm sorry. And he looked at me, he said, "You've never heard of pickleball?" And I started feeling very small. I'm thinking, what happened to me? Is that the kind of thing we're talking about? Of course, that's, I'm sure, I'm going to explain what that is, because I know people's going to call me if I don't. I've already thrown it on the table. But I really didn't. But it's been out there for years now.
It has.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Between that and bocce, bocce is something that I got introduced to before I came here, and it was it's an interesting game. A lot of people think of it as senior games, and yes, it is a part of senior games.
Could be, yeah.
But it's also pickleball is even better because it's actually a shorter. Especially if you're just learning tennis, it's very close to tennis, but it's a shorter court, and it's a little bit. It's kind of a cross between, to me, badminton and tennis. So it makes it a little bit easier to do. And that's why seniors kind of gravitated towards it. It was a little bit better for them to do.
Well, this guy fits right in that category as a senior. I told him he was in denial. I said, just go ahead and say you can't play tennis. He said, yeah, you're being cruel, man. But those are kinds of things that folks, sometimes it's on the radar. You know it. You can pull something in that's trending statewide and say, hey, here's something might be interesting to folks down here. If that doesn't happen, unless you're from somewhere else, they're not going to get it here, are they?
No. That's right.
So how much of this then becomes education?
Oh, I think it's a huge part, and that's one of the things is bringing folks in the summer with our futsal program that we're talking about. If you say futsal, people are like, "What is that?" Yeah. And they're not going to sign up for it because they don't know anything about it. But when you say it's indoor soccer, and we start introducing it during baseball season, we show them, we have some clinics with our staff. Then they start looking at it, they understand it. So a lot of times that's what we try to do is we go into one program and then we introduce a new program so they start to understand. And it takes a couple of years for our folks to get used to it. Everybody's not willing to try something new, obviously, but we get the buy-in, and then we're ready to go. the program takes off.
And to that, some degree, is where we've ended up with soccer. I mean, for a lot of guys maybe in my age category, you know, I'm still thinking baseball, football, that kind of thing. But when to a lot of people, when you say football, that is inclusive of soccer, and then maybe the regular football comes thereafter. So when we come back, I want to talk about some of those things that has been trending that we might not know about, and also some things that is down the road in the future that you guys can see that we can't out of the windshield you look out of. So we're going to take another break. We'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. I might learn some things about pickleball and soft football or whatever we're going to call it, but we'll try to explain it. Call a friend. We look forward to having you in the second half of the show coming up.
You come out to replace a bad sensor, and that adds a 5-year commitment to my contract, and you don't tell me? Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping homes secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody try to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. We're talking with Jonathan Allen. We're talking with Dana Hall. We're talking with two directors of Recreation and Parks, Parks and Recreation, City of Clinton, County of Sampson. A lot going on. We're talking a little bit about some of the kind of sports that's been out there for a while. And as we went off, one of those areas that you talked about was this kind of an indoor soccer thing. Dana, give us a little more detail on that. We've touched on pickleball, so that's been out there for a while, but the kind of the indoor soccer thing has been trending for a while for you too, hasn't it?
Yes. Indoor soccer is pretty much, it works on footwork technique. So instead of a normal outside court where you have such a large area to kick the ball, you have a smaller court and you're focusing on the lines of a basketball court. So it's working on your footwork. The kids love it. It's a short court, so they get a lot of touches on the ball. And then the adults as well, it makes it very competitive for them because it's a lot of contact. You don't think of soccer as contact, but especially with adults, it's a lot of contact and it's a lot of fun, and they like to even go in and just play pickup games. But it's something that really has been trending for a while, and parents and adults as well as kids have been looking for something to do in the summer where you kind of beat the heat. Pool's a great way to do that, but also indoor soccer is something where they don't have to have their kids outside and we don't have to worry about sunscreen and stuff like that. It's climate control.
That's one of the things that was trending. I was mentioning an article on a national level for 2019, and those are the kinds of things that's trending. How do you fit now this idea of recreation and parks being indoor? And one of the things they were pointing out was those games you play inside. Jonathan, you've got a pretty huge facility over there at Royal Lane. Do you do some of those things in the city at that location? And is location an issue for you, or do you utilize school facilities and other locations throughout the city?
We actually do both. We utilize, especially during the season, we utilize school facilities especially for basketball. That's our biggest, because we have to have a number of courts. But we have a relationship with the city school system. The high school does a program for the younger age groups, and we get them over there, and they do a great job. The coach Ron Davis does a great job with them, as well as the other coaches, and then we do use Sunset Avenue School as well. So we utilize the school gyms for those items, but then we do a lot out of in-house too with that space. So we're always open up different things. We do senior games there at the Bellamy Center. We actually do shuffleboard. We actually draw the courts out there because we used to do it outside, but it was just, it's rain or shine pretty much. So, so it helps out if it's raining outside, we're good there. So
you mentioned Ron Davis. I know they're doing a lot over there with technology and technology issues, which brings me to the obvious question. There are parents out there will contact me after this show and they'll go, why didn't you guest them to, so I'm going to ask you this, how do you get the kids away from the computer or tablet and get active? We talk about that a lot. You see it on everything from medical shows to behavioral health shows. How do you engage that kid to get them to move beyond that? And the next question that kind of blend in with that, is there a way that the technology can become part of a recreation event?
Oh yeah, I think that a lot of the larger cities kind of started off with integrating the technology. I think it is moving to us at a rapid pace right now as to try to get some involvement there. There is just such a variety of programs now that kids are involved in. Even at the schools, you see robotics, and those are some things that are coming to us, and people are actually, because we don't have our own indoor facilities, they're partnering with the schools to do some robotics camps and some different things that involve more technology based. And that's one of the things that we try to help the schools with, is we try to, provide staff if they need so to go in and help volunteer, and in turn, they allow us to use their facilities. One of the things with us, how do you get them away from their phones, is you have to get them involved in something where they're away from their phones. And that's one of the big things for us, is to limit their screen time, where as long as they're getting some physical activity out during the day, we give them time. We ask them, what's going on in their life and what they're doing, what new games they're into. But we also take that time away, that when they're participating in our programs, that it is physically active, and they're away from that screen during that time.
Do you see more of that in the city as well? I mean, I kind of transitioning here. I'm looking at Diana and I look at Jonathan, I'm thinking, okay, because I remember the period of time in existence, and a lot of folks are going to say, oh, I'm glad you said that. But when people would say, okay, it's summertime, so you automatically had a job, it was in agriculture somewhere. You were in a field, you were in tobacco, you were in pepper, whatever. But now, Jonathan, it's more like an urban kind of thing everywhere, because we got all these legal ramifications. Absolutely. You can't use children. Well, that's totally out. And I'm thinking, why didn't they have that rule in place? I was at the back of me. But yeah, so is that something that now you're finding that people are saying, well, what am I going to do with kids? So they'll be glad to sit there for 6 hours and stare at their phone or tablet.
Well, what we're doing, one thing that is kind of similar to what she's doing, but I think you also got to get in their mind. And what I mean by that is you got to go to them. So there are things you can do. For example, Facebook or Facebook videos, because they're going on those iPads, they're going on their phones to look at these things. So you have to kind of play to them too, and that helps get them in. And once you get them in, then you can get the physical activity. You can get them to interact. We also use at one of our facilities, we have a Wii. So basically what they do is they'll come in, and yes, they're playing a video game, but they are up and moving about. So again, you got to play to what their interests are too. Because if their interests aren't what you're doing, it's not going to work.
So you basically say and take that technology and expand it outward.
That's right.
To move it to a physical kind of movement thing.
That's right.
I will say that technology has been a big help as far for us as what programs to offer, because we take pictures at all our games, we do some videos at our games, and then we post it. And then if people are interested in other things, that's their forum to tell us, what they want, what we're looking for. If they have questions, a lot of times people won't call us or they won't ask us face to face because they're a little bit nervous to ask about it, or it sounds like a dumb question. But a lot of times they'll do that online, as they'll send us a message and they'll ask, because it's not anonymous, but it is, so they don't have to, feel embarrassed about it. They can ask us whatever question, they can throw out an idea, and a lot of times those ideas take off as to what the need is for the community.
I'm always amazed at when I'm doing these shows how I find these crossovers, and I wouldn't imagine they were there. So a while back I'm doing a show with the animal shelter folks, and I had something with a show I was doing with the animal control, the law enforcement people. But one of the big things I'm seeing in recreation now is that the trending 2019 and forward, it's a huge thing now for Parks and Recs folks, is how do they deal with the animals, because people want to bring their animals and they want their animals with them, and it's just completely kind of mind-blowing when you read some of the data, because it's like, if I go, my Susie the doggy or whatever, I mean, that's a part of the family, so they're coming. Is that a challenge for you? Because, history tells me there was a time, as I recall, you didn't bring animals on recreation property. So where are we at in that?
Well, for the city, we have a leash law. So they can bring them, but they have to be on a leash. Probably the strangest one I've heard before was a lady asked about a cat. And we said, well, you can bring the cat, but they have to be on a leash. Yeah.
How does that work? I haven't seen a cat on a leash.
It was interesting. Yeah. I'll put it that way. But it worked, and everything was fine. It was pretty much a lap cat, so it was fine. But you know, the one thing that does help some too is we do have a dog park here in Clinton over at Fisher Drive, the Go Bark Dog Park. So we do have that park in existence, and it does help. But again, like you said, they're a part of the family, so they want to come. But there is a fine line there, and just helping them understand that they have to be on a leash. That's the biggest thing for us.
That's a big issue, I know, in the county as well, because when you think about it, you know, historically, I look back and you say, well, bring your dog. Well, folks in the county, I mean, they usually don't have a fence or something. These animals are just out there. But we've got an age difference here occurring too, and millennials don't see that as a threat. In fact, they see that as part of being socially, I guess, acceptable. You know, if you don't have a dog, you must not be a nice person or something. It's just.
It is.
But you read this. I mean, this stuff is out there. It's we don't. You can't make this stuff up, but it's there. So for you, is that something that you think about? And how am I going to address that? Is there pet-friendly games, and there's games that's not pet-friendly? You get 4 or 5 dogs at the same place, and all I'm trying to get a seat on a bleacher.
Yeah, I think that's something that, you know, we always see what are the possible issues that this could create, and that's something that we have to constantly think about when we're planning. And like you said, you know, most of the towns and all of our parks, we do have leash laws. So we say you have to be on a leash, but it's also in turn a little bit of a problem because we don't have a park ranger or a park police to police it. So, you know, when it's reported, it's really hard unless there's somebody that's just in the park that day to do something about it. And I really think it's just an education process that people know that we don't have a problem with you bringing your animal. It's just we don't want you to get in a situation where your family member, something happens and you get in a situation where you're involved with animal control because of something that happens just because you weren't educated and didn't know what to do.
And I think part of it is just the social adaptation of whatever that animal may be, and we hadn't even got into some of the really weird descriptions of what animals might be. But is that animal socialized enough to be able to function effectively around you know, people or large groups of people? Has it been tested to an extent? And I think that's when I look at it, that people that might collide with the people that don't think the animal needs to be there is something that could be worked out, as you just said, through communication and understanding, so they could accept, well, this is going to happen, and Daisy or whatever the dog's name is, Fred, whomever, is going to come to the game. It's that simple, because he sleeps in the bed with me or what have you. And people will look at you like, oh, you have a problem with that? You know, no, I don't have a problem. So you got it. We're in that world.
That's right, yeah.
So when we come back, I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of these things that may be trending, and also get into some of the specifics that you want folks to know about Parks and Recreation, and kind of revisit that idea of letting the commissioners and city council know as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Call up friends, stay tuned. We're talking about Parks and Recreation. We're talking about a subject that oftentimes you've thought about and you might have a mindset about. It might be changing. We'll tell you more about that when we come back. Stay tuned.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Coming up on our last segment here with We Should Know, each and every Tuesday, 2:30, WCLN, Star Communications, Sampson Weekly Newspaper, uploaded to YouTube a couple of weeks after you're hearing this. You can probably find it on YouTube, given time and everybody getting it uploaded to YouTube. So I'm constantly getting questions about that. We're talking about Parks and Recreation today. We're talking with Dana Hall and Jonathan Allen, Sampson County, City of Clinton. All the same folks, though, you know, in and out. You know, people from Newton Grove, Jonathan, might show up at your operation, and Dana, people from Clinton may show up at Newton Grove or Hopton or Union or Lakewood or what am I missing? Union. So any one of these districts that you have, this is a pretty traverse society, should I say. Challenges for you guys. You know, I mentioned game changers at the beginning. Let's talk about for a minute what you see as a significant challenge for you going forward now, maybe the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, as far as the county, travel is always going to be a big issue for us just because of the distance and the vast land mass that we have. We're fortunate to be the largest county in the state, but then it also has its challenges as well. But what we're looking to do is we're looking to change our programs where we keep that travel down. Jonathan and I have a good partnership where he's allowed us to use his site as a neutral location for folks, whenever we have Union playing some of the midway areas that they meet in the middle. We've been able to do that. We've also been able to incorporate City of Clinton in some of our programs when maybe they don't have as many teams that they can play with us. But something that we're trying to work on right now is to change the rules of our games to smaller amount of participants playing on the court or the field at a time, so maybe we can stay in that community and we can build that community so it can get back to where they don't have to travel, that they can stay in their own community and play. And that's a big focus for us right now, is to really get the people to understand that. I think they think Parks and Recreation now, well, I just don't have the time to travel with my kid. I don't have the time to drive all the way to Newton Grove and I live in Roseboro. I just don't have the time to do that. But there are concessions that can be made where we can just travel at home. It doesn't have to be as competitive. And then for those who are looking for something more competitive, they can incorporate that travel.
Absolutely. And I think of places like Plainview in Northern Indiana County and Clement, over toward the Federal area. You're talking a pretty good little drive to drive from there maybe to Union, or especially from Plainview to down to Union, or even in the Harrells area.
Yes.
The significance of that is that what do you offer? And if somebody wants to, we talked about some of these things that people might not be familiar with, like pickleball and the indoor soccer and that kind of thing. There just might not be a facility there to do it.
True.
So that could create issues.
It does create issues sometimes, but with Parks and Recreation, you're kind of the jack of all trades, and we kind of work pretty good on the fly as far as
figuring it out.
Yeah, if you give us a facility, we can figure out how to make a program work, and that's one of the things I was talking about is modifications. Parks and Recreation folks are the king and queens of making modifications and making it work. So it may not look like the exact sport that you watch on TV, but we make it work for what works for our community and what works best for our participants.
Yeah, Jonathan, same question for you. That thing that you see is, it's out there, you're going to have to deal with it, and you're trying to figure out, how to get it in the box or get it out of the box. What is that challenge for you?
Probably the biggest challenge for us is the changing needs of what our community needs are. And what I mean by that is Royal Lane is a big park, and we've got space, but is it the best space that we is it the space we still need? And is it meeting those needs? And that part will have to change. We've done the master plan for that. The next phase is, okay, how do we get those phases completed? So it's a financial thing. So, with moderate growth in the city and also with the county, how do we meet those needs? And some of that's going to be partnerships. Some of that's going to be reaching out to area businesses to make some of those things happen. And that's the only way I kind of see it happening. And so we're getting that information back from the public that they're wanting these things, but how are we going to make it happen? That's really the biggest thing. And like she said, we're the captain and chief when it comes to modification. We have to do it, and we kind of go with the even flow. So we know it's coming. It's just a matter of how do we make it happen.
There's a big, I'm sure everybody, if you've looked at any media or talked to anybody, there's a huge number of people involved in it, and this is the whole idea of the city recognition, national recognition that everybody's been working on, continues to work on. This is a project in motion. The question would be, what role does recreation play in that? And I'm sure folks have looked at that. I'm sure you guys are already engaged. But does people really realize how important the recreation piece is? Has part of that been overlooked? Do you feel like that maybe there's some things you could add to that? I don't know how many, I will not guess at how many hundred people Jeff Ship and others has working in that area that's doing a tremendous job, and we give everybody thumbs up. So what do you see recreation's part of that?
It's a big part of it. But again, and I think Jeff would tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
Is it's all of those items playing together. For example, one of the things they're looking at or they're toning is the Newkirk Park, and that is absolutely true. But that was a culmination of community members, police, recreation, public works. So it was a combination of the community coming together to make this a better place. And the community members stepped up and said, enough is enough. And the police came together with that. So it's a tie-in of everything. So yes, recreation is a part of that, just as public works is a part of that, police is a part of that. But the point is there, the walking trail, the park itself, and the community coming in. Recreation was kind of the start of that. It gave them that platform to really make it happen. And we see that whether it's passive recreation, organized sports, whatever it may be, recreation plays a part in everybody's life, and I don't ever see that going away.
And for a rural county, and again, we talked about the size of it, we talked about the economic investment. One of the things that I think we've seen trending for a number of years here, we're not probably going to see any kind of tax increases unless I missed something somewhere. So with that being said, how creative, Dana, do you have to be, not only in your resources, but how do you motivate people to stand up and say, as we just talked about a while ago, I'm going to give my time, I might know a little bit about soccer, I might know a little bit about some technology stuff. How do you motivate people to want to be part of that? And that ties right back into being recognized as, a city of distinction as well.
Well, I think the biggest piece of that is you've got to develop a quality department that people want to be involved in. And that's something that both of us believe in, and we work very hard to try to build the staff that people want to work with and try to build the programs that people want to be a part of. Because really, you have to draw people to you. They're not going to want to be involved in something they don't believe in, and so that's kind of the biggest piece. And then once they are starting to be a part and participate a little bit in our program, we try to give them what they need to move to the next step. So our staff goes in and they do the first couple of trainings, so they don't feel like they're just kind of left out to the wolves, and they develop a relationship with our staff, so they feel like they have a good communication process with them. And right now, happy to say that our staff are very easy to communicate with. They are very involved in our community, and they really want to see our programs grow. So we have a really good staff to work with, and that's one of the reasons that we get some of the good volunteers that we do.
Jonathan, same thing?
Same thing. I mean, you start with your staff. Whenever you're, and Dana's went through the same thing. When you come in to build a program, you start with your staff, because they're going to be, we're fortunate, for example, at our park, our frontline staff are awesome. I can't tout them enough, and they're embedded in the community, but they are great at dealing with people. That's key, because when you have a coach, somebody that comes through, and they may be iffy about coaching, for example. I call Elizabeth our jack of all trades, because she can make people do things they don't want to do necessarily, in a good way. But they may be iffy about coaching. She'll talk to them, and then boom, they're coaching with us.
So we're really talking inspiration here to an extent.
It is.
If folks are listening out there, if somebody feels inspired to do that, they can call you, Dana, at what number?
299-0924.
299-4906.
Okay, we got about 60 seconds. I want to make sure we get anything in that you guys have got coming up that you need to make sure folks remember.
Well, we have our futsal, which is indoor soccer summer program coming up. We're going to be registering for about another week. So next Friday, they can register online at sampsonnc.com. There's a link, and it says register for all of our sports. And then we also have our summer softball program that's going to be going on for ages 13 and under. And they can sign up in the same place. If they have other questions, they can call us at 299-0924.
Okay, and even if they can't get into that program, if they want to see one somewhere else in the county, sit down and help you put something together?
Yes. Absolutely.
We got, I mentioned pretty much everything. We are having fall registration for youth soccer and football going on now, and they can call the office to get that information. We are going to be doing a comprehensive master plan for the entire city programs, so be on the lookout for that as well.
And to contact you, the number?
299-4906.
Okay, 299-4906.
Yes, sir.
And any information that they need, they can call that number, or again, they can go to either one of the websites and get into the website and just send an email. And I'm finding more and more people are doing that. Still, folks use a telephone for a telephone, but now it's more just electronic computer, and they're sending you a message. So, should they expect to be somebody get back with them in a week or 2 weeks?
Oh, less.
Oh, yeah. If they call, they'll get an answer pretty much that day, Monday through Friday.
Text or email.
Yeah, text or email. It's pretty much going to be a 24-hour response. And Facebook is a great way to contact us. And if they're just looking to kind of see what we have going on, there's hundreds of pictures that they can look in.
Well, thank you for being with us. We've come up on closing time. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to seeing you again next week at 2:30, each and every Tuesday at 2:30. And as always, we say, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.